Space is vast, mysterious, and full of mind-bending secrets. But what if I told you that some of the things we believe about the cosmos are completely wrong? For centuries we've looked up at the night sky and told stories about what we see, stories that evolved into myths. Today we're busting some of the biggest astronomy myths that have been fooling people for years. Ready? Let's dive in. Our pale blue dot seems like a perfect sphere when you gaze at pictures from space. The iconic blue marble photo taken by astronauts gives us this impression of a flawless, round planet. But if you imagine Earth as a perfectly round billiard ball, think again. The reality is far more intriguing. Our planet is actually an oblate spheroid. This means it's not a perfect sphere but slightly flattened at the poles. That means it's slightly squashed at the poles and bulging at the equator. This bulge is due to the planet's rotation. The Earth rotates on its axis, and this constant spinning creates a centrifugal force that pushes outward, especially at the equator. This force is what causes the equatorial bulge. This bulge is very subtle, you wouldn't notice it just by looking at the Earth from, say, an airplane window. It's a difference of only about 21 kilometers in diameter, but don't let this subtle bulge fool you. This seemingly small difference has big implications. It affects everything from satellite orbits to the way we measure distances on Earth. So the next time you see a perfectly round globe, remember reality is a bit more complex, a bit more fascinating. Our Earth is a dynamic, ever-changing planet with unique characteristics. You've probably heard the phrase, the dark side of the moon. Sounds mysterious, right? But here's the truth. There is no permanent dark side. The moon, our celestial companion, is tidally locked to Earth. That means it always shows us the same face as it orbits our planet. But while we only ever see one side from Earth, the other side, the so-called dark side, gets just as much sunlight throughout the lunar month. So, the next time you hear someone talking about the dark side of the moon, remember it's all about perspective. The side we don't see is just as sun-kissed and cratered as the one we know and love. Hollywood makes space look terrifying, and well, it is. The endless void, the lack of oxygen, the extreme temperatures, it's enough to make anyone think twice about leaving Earth. Movies often depict space as a realm where the slightest mistake leads to instant, catastrophic consequences. But if you step into space without a suit, you won't instantly explode like in the movies. The reality is a bit less dramatic, though still quite dangerous. While it's true that space is a vacuum and your body is used to the pressure of our atmosphere, you wouldn't burst like an overfilled balloon. The human body is more resilient than Hollywood gives it credit for. Here's what would really happen. You'd lose consciousness within seconds due to the lack of oxygen. Without the pressure of a suit, the oxygen in your blood would deplete rapidly. Your blood wouldn't boil, at least not immediately, because your circulatory system can maintain pressure. The boiling point of fluids in your body would drop, but not enough to cause instant boiling. You would, however, experience extreme swelling and some pretty nasty burns from the unfiltered radiation of the sun. The lack of atmospheric protection means you'd be exposed to harmful UV rays. Your demise in space would be unpleasant, no doubt, but it would take a few minutes, not a few milliseconds. The process is slower and more agonizing than the instant explosions depicted in films. When you see a meteor burning through the sky, it looks fiery hot, right? It's a spectacular sight, a blazing ball of fire streaking across the heavens, a blazing streak of light, a cosmic messenger leaving a trail of fire in its wake. It's easy to imagine that this celestial object is burning intensely. It makes sense to think that if you found a meteorite, the chunk of rock that survives the fiery descent and lands on Earth, it would be scorching hot, right? After all, it just endured a fiery plunge through the atmosphere. But when it lands, it's actually cold. This might seem surprising, but there's a fascinating reason behind it. The intense heat you see during a meteor's plunge through the atmosphere is caused by friction. As the meteor speeds through the air, it compresses the air in front of it, generating immense heat. This heating happens very quickly and only affects the outer layers of the rock. The interior remains insulated from this brief but intense heat. So, by the time a meteorite lands on Earth, the fiery heat you saw has long dissipated, and the interior is still incredibly cold from its journey through the cosmos. This cold core is a remnant of its time traveling through the frigid vacuum of space. This is one of the oldest space myths. People say the Great Wall of China is the only man-made structure visible from space. But that's not true. While it's an incredible feat of engineering, stretching over 13,000 miles, the Great Wall is surprisingly difficult to see from orbit, especially with the naked eye. From low Earth orbit, where the International Space Station resides, you can see many man-made structures, cities, bridges, even airports. But the Great Wall is relatively narrow and blends in with the surrounding landscape, making it tough to spot. So, while the Great Wall might be one for the history books, it's not winning any awards for visibility from space. So, how many of these myths did you believe? Space is full of wonders, but sometimes even the most obvious facts turn out to be fiction. If you loved this myth-busting episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more amazing space facts. See you in the next one.